Welcome to Inside Portsmouth, the first rendition here in May. And with me today, I'm Jeff Richard. With me today is John Klim, who is our town administrator. And Mr. Klim's had a very, very busy week. It's budget season in Rhode Island, and it's a very intense process. And I think I'd like to start right away. Over the course of the week, John, you've been very busy getting ready and then attending all of these meetings. Last night was a gathering amongst the true players in town, the people from the town council and the folks from the school committee, superintendent, yourself, gathered together in a round table, and I guess it was time to talk about the reality of life. And could you tell us a little bit about how that went?
When we were putting together our entire budget package, one of the things originally Councillor Keith Hamilton brought up was the need to really begin a process with our school department, because there's such a large department in our town in terms of expenditure, that the relationship needed to be examined in terms of where we're headed, what our common goals are, and the like. And so we came up with this concept of having a workshop, which we had last night, between the town council and the school committee. Now, some thought we were going to be discussing this next year's budget, but the reality is that the request was to get both bodies together to begin to discuss the need for long-range financial planning, to begin a process of open communication, to discuss with our school committee things like what can we expect our resources to be over the next 5 years. And we did discuss, for example, the issue of the tax cap. I don't know if there has been an open discussion in the recent past in Portsmouth about that whole issue. In other words, what is the expectation or the goal of either the school committee or the town council in regards to a proper plan to address the issue of whether taxes over the next 5 years should go up. Under what circumstances should they go up? When we make decisions about scarce resources, do we take the reality of our economy and what's happening in the outside world in those decisions before we decide whether taxes are going to go up? I think that we have general conversations, but I don't think we have formal conversations. And so we go year to year and go through this budgetary process without a real plan. And so the point that I tried to make last night is although we have an annual operating budget and we have now a proposed capital improvement plan, which is an improvement, we don't have a real master plan. We don't have a roadmap, a financial roadmap. And there really is a need for us to engage not only the school committee and the town council, but the citizens of Portsmouth in terms of what their expectations are. Is it the feeling of the majority of the residents of our town, for example, that we should be talking about any tax increase at this time? And have our taxpayers and citizens had ample opportunity to engage in that process? I don't think that we have a formal process, and I think because of that, there's really a piecemeal approach to a budgetary process. We kind of compartmentalize it and not look at the overall picture. Yeah. And as difficult as it is, because these are difficult issues, I have asked the school committee and the town council to consider engaging in those conversations. Let's talk about the next 5 years. What are we going to do with our tax levy? Are there circumstances where we might be asking for increases, and under what circumstances would we be doing that? Is the average citizen in Portsmouth feeling that they have an opportunity to give input in terms of that process? You can look proactively or prospectively at this, or you can just kind of dig in year to year and say, well, here's the budget, what does it look like, is there a merit to increasing or whatever, but without really looking at the overall picture. And so I tried to express to the school committee and to the town council that we really should step back and talk openly and honestly about our resources. They are scarce, and try to put a plan together that not only tells the town council and the school committee what the projections are over the next 5 years, but also gives an indication to our taxpayers that the plan is to not increase taxes, or the plan is to go to the 4% cap every year. I want to have that conversation in this community.
Mm-hmm. I recall when we talked earlier that you had proposed a couple of things. One of them was in the budget build-up, you would like to see a gathering very similar to what you did yesterday. Early on, the first thing that the school department and the town council would gather and do exactly what you just said. Think about the financial future. What's happening to us? I saw an article in the paper that said that more people are leaving Rhode Island than any other state in the union, and that is a very disturbing phenomenon. The other thing that you suggested earlier was a citizen survey.
Yes.
So perhaps that's something, once the budget is put to bed, that you could pursue and maybe get that sense of where the community really wants to go. And I suppose the timing of the survey would have to be
we actually talked about that the other night during one of the budgetary presentations, because I have asked for some additional funding to undertake a survey. And it would be that very type of question that we would like to ask. You know, we all think that since this is a relatively small community, that we know enough people to have a good pulse on the community.
But that's not true,
it really isn't these days. We're all too busy. You know, we don't have the communications that we've had in the past, and to have an independently done professional survey, I think would be very telling in terms of giving us some information as direction.
I agree.
For our
I'm
future.
amazed all the time at I bump into people at Clements Market, our only market, and I haven't seen them for 5-6 years, and I'm absolutely amazed. And we have about, what, 17,000 people here in town.
Yeah.
And you don't see them. They don't know what necessarily what's going on. And I applaud your interest in expanding the visibility of government and getting everybody involved in a discussion. So at the end of the evening, was there a proposal from anybody as to what the movement should be going forward?
I was very pleased that this concept was well received by both the town council and the school committee. They felt strongly that there was merit to putting a working group together made up of members of the school committee and town council to begin these discussions in two fronts. One is that there was a recognition that more can be done in terms of collaboration between the two groups. Last night we talked about information technology, we talked about labor attorneys, whether there could be collaborations, grounds and maintenance was discussed and whatever. And that is obvious. I mean, it is obvious that more can be done, and there was a receptiveness on the part of both the school committee and the town council to pursue those. Those are kind of like the short-term issues, because it should not take us that long to do an evaluation, and in some instances it might ultimately make sense, and for other reasons, in some instances it may not make sense. But just to be able to tell our taxpayers and our citizens that we're looking at every function of government over a period of time, because we all know that there's always room for improvement, and to have operational audits, to be able to have both sides, the school committee and the town, committed to regular reviews of what we do makes sense. But we also talked about the larger issues, which is that we have a finite amount of resources, and that assumptions are being made. For example, someone involved with our schools would like to believe that the taxpayers will be able to provide another $1 million or $1.1 million of new funding every year. The message that I tried to make last night is that, simply stated, the numbers don't work. Unless we do what we've been doing, which is forget doing roads and forget doing capital infrastructure projects and spending down our fund balance, and you only can go so long, down that road. And so the message that I tried to deliver is that, simply looking at what is projected that the numbers don't work and that we need a different way of looking at this, a different approach. That also should include something as fundamental as defining what our core mission is. You know, I've said this on this program before, but all too often communities try to be all things to all people, and it just doesn't at the end of the day work, especially when you have limited resources and you're in tough economic times. And so tough decisions have to be made about what your wants are and what your needs are. And you know, we provide some services that I think most in the general public would define as an essential service, you know, protecting our citizens, educating our youngsters and the like. But there's also services that we provide that probably aren't in that category. And so we need to perform an evaluation of those services, and in the first instance determine whether or not it makes sense to continue them with the possibility of elimination of some services. And if there is a value to the continuation of those services, the question is, should the users of those services be the entity that pays as opposed to the general taxpayer? So that type of evaluation I don't think has really taken place here as well. And in both instances, whether it's what do we assume the tax increase is going to be, if at all, and also what are our essential services, those are tough issues and those are easy to defer. But they're very, very important if you're really going to put a financial plan together.
What would be the mechanics of this kind of review?
I think that the first thing that you need to do is to have, in all of this, the largest, I mean, the most significant entities in town, because they're the ones that make these decisions, are the town council and the school committee. But also, we need to engage all of the variety of interests that benefit from these services, and most particularly our general public. And I think we need to figure out a way to more effectively include our general public in this regard. And it might not be just to have meetings, because a lot of times people are so busy they can't go to meetings, but through citizen surveys and through emails and other social media and the like, we need to figure out an effective way to reach out, because we're there to serve the general public, but we have to understand what their true needs and wants and desires are for us to be able to do that. But it's clear if you look at the breadth of services that we provide, that we're not doing it in a efficient and effective way.
I was impressed with how many of us were at the town council workshop that dealt with all of the smaller budget lines. I was there for Melville Park, and the first thing that struck me about recreation in our town is a piecemeal function, and we don't have a recreation department. I mean, I know that you put that in as a term in the budget, and I certainly would like to see one. But we are small little rice bowls, and sometimes those rice bowls are competitive. So in the world of scarce resources, wouldn't it be better if we had a general view, as you suggest, of what the town wants for its recreation and parks, and how we'd like it to be organized, so that you can do the budget, a little better. Is that something that you think we might be able to do?
It is. It's that commitment that is needed by staff and by the town council and by other entities in the community to improve the situation. I mean, we're rich in recreational assets, but as you said, it was rather odd for me to find out in my first several days. I was walking around looking for the director of recreation. Well, I'm still looking.
You're in.
And that is partly a function of the fact that we're trying to live within our means and keep the number of staff down. But recreation is big business in this town, and it's very important, from what I understand, to a lot of citizens, parents, and others that participate in recreational activities. And I'm really blown away at the volunteerism in this community. How so many volunteer groups do so much. So that's a good thing. But you need some coordination as well. So we'll be looking at that.
Yeah, that's the function that is probably missing. Everything else seems to come together, and we are definitely passionate about our sports and parks and all sorts
Yes.
of things like that. And that's great. The rest of the process of your budgeting is moving forward, and what do you see is to take place from now until the town council votes final?
Our next budget meeting is May 15th. And at that hearing, we'll hear from the school committee, the school department. They'll actually present the school budget. Okay. And there's several other budgets, the enterprise accounts, the town council's budget, and others that, and the assessing and tax collection. So we have 5 or 6 additional budgets that still have to be done. And then there is a hearing in June, June 13th, which is the formal opportunity for our citizens to hear the budget presentations and to let us know and let the town council know what they support and they don't support.
Is that, over time, many of us have believed that by the time we've gotten to that point in the budgeting process, you can stand up and say anything you want, it really won't make a difference to the bottom line. Everybody's sort of put their feet into the cement, and nobody's going to move from those numbers. So what's going to be different about this?
Well, I haven't been to one in the past. So, and I have to say that, and this isn't criticism at all, but this is a very unique budgetary process in terms of some of the comments that you just made. I don't think, though, that I do believe that the town council is listening, and I do believe that input that is given at any of these workshops and hearings, including the one in June, the major hearing, will be listened to by this town council. And how do I know that? Because I talk to the councilors all the time, and I can see that they have been impacted by comments that have been made. You know, I just submitted a proposal, a budget proposal. There's no expectation on my part that the council will accept that package as presented to them. I mean, I have every expectation that they'll state their priorities, they'll make changes, as they should. They're the elected officials in town. So I hope that we can encourage people to come out to let us know what they like and dislike. And as you know, there has been multiple opportunities, and we'll continue that as well.
Super. I was reviewing the first interview that Doug Smith did with you, and it's the economic first interview, and you had very, very large number of great ideas about what was going to happen. But I suppose that many of those things wait until the budget process is over, and you get your energy back, and
it really
it.
is all-consuming.
Yeah.
I mean, we've met 4 nights this week,
yeah.
And they have been long days. And it's really the most important thing we do: set a budget, debate a budget, and move forward. And so during this time, you really have to defer some of the other issues,
sure.
and then pick them up as soon as the budget is
So to
complete.
get your mind away from budgeting, what do you think might be the first 2 things you're going to do after the budget goes to bed?
There is someone asked me the other day that very question, right. and the greatest challenge that I have is that there's so many areas that I want to involve myself in, and that I have to try to make some decisions about what makes the most sense. Within Town Hall, I have some ideas in terms of the day-to-day operations of the operations of town government, and that's not to criticize or whatever, but there is room for improvement. I have been a strong supporter of conducting operational audits, and so a decision will have to be made soon if the council, in their wisdom, approves the funding for an operational audit or several operational audits. The question is, where do you start? And I haven't finalized that decision yet, and since we haven't done it in the past, I mean, I'm of the opinion that over a period of time, every function of government needs to be looked at.
I was going to say, for those of us who are not all that familiar with the term operational audit,
right.
We know that we have an auditing firm that comes to the town each
right.
year and does I guess, the general view
yes.
of how the money moves around
right.
town, and in fact it's there. But an operational audit
Right.
is different. How would you do
Well, one's
that?
a financial audit. You are referring to our financial audit, which is an auditing
Right.
firm comes in and they look at the financial books. An operational audit does something very different. It looks at the operations of the department on a day-to-day basis. How does it work? Is it efficient? Could changes be made? And you usually try to bring in someone that is not aware of personalities and
Okay.
what is actually happening on a day-to-day basis, but they're actually just looking at the operation itself. I have found out over a period of time that is a very cost-effective and productive way. In some instances, you find out that the department or the program that's being looked at is actually running very efficiently, and that's a good thing. But a lot of times you find you get a list of recommended changes, and so we'll go through that process. And so I am most concerned about the operations that presently exist, where there isn't a full understanding of what our costs are. And you know, the fire department, for example, comes to mind. And once again, this has nothing to do with the great folks that work in the fire department and the leadership team there. But we can't, no one in this town knows what the cost of that department is going to be from year to year. And the reason is that there are contractual agreements that say that there is minimum manning and there are certain stipulations, and so if someone's out, then you have to do certain things. And so at the end of the day, you can't presently say to that department, here is your budget, you have to do the best you can within the scope of the resources that are available.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I mean, we're not at that point right now, and so it's an open checkbook. And so that really, in terms of financial accountability, that is something that really needs to be looked at.
Well, if you're spending almost, well, was it a year ago budget that we were $600,000 in overtime alone, and that for most of us, that it's awfully hard to understand that. Bristol, Rhode Island has a literally volunteer fire department. They spent, I think their budget had $850,000 in it this coming budget, or this year's budget, for a town with 23,000 people in it. We're spending $3.5 million, a lot of money. And I noticed that in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, they have a contracted service for ambulance. Their EMT is a contractor. So our folks here are spending a great deal of time during the EMT side of firefighting. We don't have very many fires, thank you. But we certainly would be fully prepared to fight them if we had
But
the
an
chance.
argument could be made, too, in terms of setting priorities, that it might make sense to start with the larger departments where most of the money is, because in this town, between the school department, fire, police, and DPW,
It's 95% of it, I
absolutely.
suppose, yeah.
And so there probably is a good case that instead of spending 6 months looking at the animal control operation, that it might make sense to look at a DPW or fire or something like that.
Sure. Well, that'll keep you busy.
Yes.
I was thinking about tying in the survey process to see what the folks in town think of the choices of the many things that you could do with your time. What the folks think are the priorities for that, which would mean maybe a survey should be a priority right out of the chute.
I believe that is the case, because we're looking for basic information,
Yeah.
and the sooner that we can do that, the better. The question is that in the first instance, will there be support of the concept of doing a survey, and then is there support continuing it? Because if it's going to be a one-time survey, there is value to that, but it's much more valuable to do it regularly, to do it really, ideally, annually, because you can track performance. And so you might ask a series of questions about your major departments, but if you can do that on an annual basis, you actually can see whether or not we are taking the feedback that is coming from our citizens and doing something with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you do it a year later, you can see whether the numbers have gone up, down, or stayed the same.
personally think that's a great idea. We should move on. What's next week going to be for you?
Next week we have a workshop on Monday night that is designed to do two things. The first is to hear from representatives of the Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns to review for us what the present state of mandates are from the state. So that when we are evaluating the budgets, it's important for us to know which items are actually mandated that we do, and so that we'll have a presentation by the League of Cities and Towns. The second part of the workshop is probably more important, and that is we're getting a final report from the Pension Commission and our experts that we have hired so that the council can make some initial decisions about the direction we're going to be heading in dealing with the pension liability issue. It's a huge issue for all of us, very important workshop. Yeah. And the council needs to make some fundamental decisions, like what is the investment rate of return going to be pegged at, which is a critical decision in terms of understanding the liability of your pension plan. And so it's going to be really an important hearing.
We've got about 2 minutes to go, and I noticed the Gina Raimondo's effort in our state legislatures brought all this to bear for the state, but now it's getting down at our level, and 8% rate of return. I would have, loved to have that personally, but
right.
That's totally unrealistic.
Right.
And dropping it down to 7, well, every time it goes down, it diminishes the percentage of the money that should be set aside. But so that's going to be hugely important, I think. This meeting is a public meeting.
Yes, it's a regular council. It's a workshop, but it's the public is invited and can comment.
But in a workshop, there are no votes taken. So
it is. I don't know whether it is the intent of the council. They could take a vote on the recommendations. I don't know what their intent is. I haven't found that out yet.
But we would encourage everybody to
yes.
to attend that. It sounds terribly important.
I mean, it is. I mean, the truth is that with these changes, our overall pension plan is less than 60% funded. So it is under state standards in a critical situation. And so I know that the Pension Commission has been working very hard on this, and that the Town Council knows that this is critically important to address.
Is the Commission going to not only present information, but is it going to make a recommendation?
Yes.
It will?
Yes, it will. Yeah.
So, and that vote on the recommendation probably would take place at a subsequent Town Council meeting?
As I said, I'm not sure what the intent of the leadership of the Council is, but I do know that the Pension Commission is coming forward with a recommendation. Okay. And I also know that the timeline is very tight. The state has notified us several weeks ago that we have to make a decision by the 11th of May on what our plan is. And then we have to November to put a plan together about what we're going to do about the situation that we're in.
That's definitely going to be a topic for next week's Portsmouth This Week. We have run out of time. Thank you very much for taking the time out of a very busy schedule to get here to the studio. And everyone have a great day.
In 2012, Rhode Island's new voter ID law will go into effect. You're going to need to bring with you identification when you go to the polls to vote. A Rhode Island driver's license, a Rhode Island ID, a student ID, or any state or federal government issued identification card with a photo on it is sufficient to vote. If you do not possess one of those forms of identification, we will provide one to you for free for voting purposes only. For details, please call us at 222-2340.